Yeah. All right, we're going. All right, this is a 51 Vets case study with one of our members, Chris Roos. He spent almost 8 years in the SEAL teams and then transitioned to get his MBA at UT Austin. While he was doing his MBA, he did an internship at Harris Williams. That was one of the things that he did during his MBA program. Then we actually met in June of 2024 at the two-day Dallas City Summit that 51 Vets hosted. And we sat down next to each other and just really got to understand, what do you need? And it turned out they just need a whole bunch of introductions because he did the internship at Harris Williams and he just needed to get connected with other firms to see what is out there. And so I think it was, Chris, I think we were at Grant Thornton's office. We probably knocked out a couple intros there. And then at the hotel bar, we probably did like another 5 or 10 intros. But then that set up over the following month, a bunch of those intro calls that then led to interviews. And then today, Chris is an investment banking associate at Jefferies. And what we're going to focus on is first, his transition last summer, the interview process, what the interviews were like, questions, how to prep for them. And then secondly, what he's been doing for the past over 6 months at Jefferies, what his typical day is like, how many projects he's working on a given time. And I think it's important to kind of start with actually the context in which you're transitioning. So Chris, can you kind of share, how old are you, married, kids, the family situation, and kind of what the situation was like when you were getting out of your MBA program?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm Chris Roos. I'm currently 33, but I was 32 when we were going through the process. And like you said, I had done a banking internship. I was at the end of the MBA tour. So yeah, and I had come back from the investment banking internship. So I got out of the military in 2022, straight into business school, just under 8 years in the SEAL teams. And I knew that investment banking would be something I was interested in. So I went ahead and secured the internship with Harris Williams and I did the summer with them. It was a great summer. I had a great time. But, investment banking can be a tough pill to swallow, especially coming from a good time in the Navy, I would say. And I had doubts that it was the right next step for me. So I ended up declining my offer from Harris Williams to go and pursue more entrepreneurial path. And ended up like taking a shot with my own company, which ended up not working out. I also ended up joining a Series A backed venture capital backed startup, and I actually spent the majority of my last semester in business school working for that startup. And so two fairly entrepreneurial endeavors, and neither of them worked out very well. They were both really awesome experiences, but with two kids at the time and a third on the way, I just realized that I was going to need some serious income coming in, and that a lot of the things about investment banking that I thought were a cultural issue or a cultural no go for me actually are things that I value. Things like valuing hard work ethic, attention to detail. And, it's a comfortable environment coming from the military. It's fairly hierarchical for better or worse. And it's just a place that I could settle down in my career and provide some stability with my family. So
So
that whole thought
you
process, yeah,
did the internship in banking. You're like, okay, this is not for me. I want to do something more entrepreneurial. Didn't work out either for yourself, but you tried it at another firm. And then you're like, all right, I saw it, but didn't my bigger life context is that, I mean, consistent and good income. And you know what? I actually really like the culture in retrospect now that I've seen something very different in an entrepreneurial type of experience.
yeah. So like exploration was huge for me through business school. Definitely did that. And but I kind of landed in April at the end of business school with like no job. this venture-backed startup was like fizzling out. And yeah. And so I
Was that
started
when
kind
we
of,
met, like in like May, June of 24?
yeah, that's when I originally reached out to 51 Vets and did the application and the interview to get in. And then we connected, and the
When did you
Dallas
actually get
Summit.
into 51 Vets?
I think it was like April or maybe May. So I like
So
had made this mental decision to go back to banking, and then I
yeah,
was like looking. I was like just gathering resources, gathering networking connections, and 51 Vets was something I had heard about from a Green Beret buddy of mine in business school, luckily. And so, yeah, so like pretty quick, I would say, like from getting into the organization and then going to the Dallas Summit. And the Dallas Summit is where I really um, recognized the value that 51 Vets brings. So I think it was like 2.5 days, and something like Monday, Tuesday, and then like we all left on Wednesday or something like that. And I think so. The first day, I drove up from Austin, and I had graduated from school at this point, and I was full networking every single day, all day. But it was still just kind of like scratching to network with people from Harris Williams, contacts through banking in Richmond, business school contacts, which aren't as strong as the soft community, what the soft community provides. And then so I get to Dallas, and we do the first day, which is like an overview. There's like a schedule, and it's like an overview of investment banking, an overview of private equity, an overview of what an accounting firm like Grant Thornton does. And we finished a full 8-hour day of seminars. And Jordan was very good about introducing me and everyone in the group throughout the day. But after the full day, we all linked up at the bar, and Jordan, you and I literally sat down, left seat, right seat, for probably 2.5 hours from like 10
two and a half
p.m.
hours and four White Russian drinks later.
Yeah, like Jordan, you were just sending emails, going through your entire Rolodex and lining them up with what I was wanting to do, which was investment banking, ideally on the East Coast. And yeah, so over the course of 2.5 hours, and while I'm feeding you a steady stream of White Russians, the emails got sent more and more loosely. So by the
So
end of
it's
the
not only
night,
correlation, there's strong causation right there.
yeah, yeah. So I think by the end of the night, you had sent I don't know, I wouldn't say like upwards of over like 50 emails.
And
And
I think one of
so
the things that made it so easy for us to do that is that your story was so easy to understand. Seal, MBA Austin, Harris was an internship, currently in Austin, willing to relocate, looking for banking on the East Coast. Boom, fire away to as many people as I can in my network. And I think one of the friction points for transitioning veterans is that they'll write like 3 paragraphs and I'm like, I just need to know a forwardable email with your bullet points and your contact info so that your network can forward that on while I have 5 or 10 minutes at 2 p.m. on a Thursday. Just imagine like a partner or an MD at a firm who 51 Vets has connected you with,
yeah,
make their life easy.
yeah, no, that's it. For me, it was like I kind of like getting out. I think when people are first getting out of the military, especially soft, we have a really hard time just saying, like, dropping the S bomb or like whatever it is, saying like I was a Navy SEAL. And while you will never see me on like CNN or you know any sort of like major, this is probably as publicly facing as I'll get, but like uh I think like using it like when it is appropriate is very important, and like leading with that, especially in the first year or two after you transition. Like, hey, I'm a former Navy SEAL. I'm interested in X, and I'm reaching out to you because of these reasons. And it's just like 2 or 3 things, key bullets. And if you lead with that higher resume point, it's just like you're gonna get the phone call. And like that's what's really important at this stage, I think, for a lot of people.
So after the intros were made, what was the next month like for you? What were you doing to go from there to actually getting a job at Jefferies?
Yeah, so I think like up to that point, I'd just been taking notes on like a notepad. And I had like, 10, 12 pages of just like, phone call with Jordan, January or June 6th, 2024. And like when we sat down at the bar, you were like, you have like a tracker, an Excel sheet that lists out like all this stuff. And I was like, no, I haven't done that yet, and I don't know why. And so like coming out of that, I realized, especially with the volume of introductions, both from in-person introductions at the summit and from the volume of emails that you sent out, I was going to need like a legit tracker to track everything. And so I
And
drove back down.
it's almost like a sell side process. You're running the buyer
Yep,
list. Like,
yep, that's
who's the
exactly what it
buyer?
is.
When did you last talk to them? What's the status? And the reason why that's important is not only for you to have a tracking sheet, but then you can go to the advisors in 51 Vets and say, hey, Jordan, can you just look through my list? Who am I missing from this list in New York that I've not spoken to? Oh, you should speak to Chris. He's an investment banking associate at Jefferies. He's not on the list. But they can't really help if they don't have the data. And then you can also have like a summary tab that says I've had 50 informational interviews and 10 round ones. And then people can look at your data and say, hey, you actually just need to adjust this part of your funnel. You almost have to run it
Yep,
like a sales funnel.
yeah, that's exactly what it was. And um the you know the like unfortunately the funnel part sort of like broke down, but for a good reason, because I came back down from the Dallas summit, and it was literally like the next day, Jordan, I had like two or three phone calls after Dallas, and like it went that was like my cadence from the time the Dallas summit was over to like early July when I ended up getting my offer. And so it went from like me with a goal. I had a goal of one networking phone call per day after graduating from school. And like I blew that goal out of the water. And it really just like poured a bunch of gas on my networking process and lit the match. Um, and so yeah, to the Excel tracker sheet point, like I had this, like I went from having like 10, 12 interactions to within a month I'd had over like 100 phone conversations. And I still use the Excel tracker today. Like, I'll log this one and I'll just put it in there and be like, Jordan 51 bets just had this conversation. And I still have like a networking goal of like one pure networking conversation per week. Even though I'm in this role and like I'm perfectly happy and not looking to go anywhere, but to like to slow down on what I didn't I think like what I'm trying to say is like I did not appreciate the value of networking, or I didn't even really understand it um before I got to 51 bets. And I think it's because like you go into business school, they have this formalized pipeline to place you in consulting, big tech, or investment banking, and your networking is really confined into those areas. But when it's just you out there, and I had exited the formal business school recruiting pipeline, like networking is just you, and it's just cold calling and warm introductions, and this like following the breadcrumb trail process is just so important. um and so yeah, I mean, like I'm happy to like we can go into like what ended up happening.
Yeah.
um
What was um, how many substantive discussions did you have that led to like a round two interview or something that was like a true interview versus Jordan connected me with you. I'm happy to take the call and be helpful.
Yeah, I wish I had pulled the data. I should have pulled the data before this, but I
How many offers did
had
you have? I know you had
so
one of our former clients, which is a larger investment bank. Obviously, Jefferies, where you work. We did not connect you with Jefferies, but we got you the offer from the other firm or connected you with
yep,
them.
yep, and that was critical. That was critical. So yeah, when it I all in, I think I was doing like final rounds essentially with I mean, William Blair, Jefferies. I felt like, I was knocking on the door at Oppenheimer. And yeah, I think like I feel the most confident in those three, and I might be leaving someone out,
Yeah.
but those three gave me the like leverage, especially like in June after business school. Like that is not when you want to be doing that process, especially for investment banking. Like it is the most formally rigid recruiting pipeline. I mean, consulting, they're like the same thing. Um, and so,
And
and
for the
at the
people
same,
who are less, for the people who are less familiar, what is that general, I typical pipeline for banking?
yeah, yeah. So like you got to do it through business school. Like doing it outside of business school is going to be just like, I would say almost impossibly difficult unless you're willing to take an analyst role, which is the most junior role in investment banking. It's typically filled by college graduates. Like my analysts outside are like 22 and 23 years old. They're young people and they're really hardworking and really smart. But a former soft, 8-year, 10-year guy in the teams is going to have a hard time, I think, stepping into the bullpen in an analyst role. So, barring that path, going straight into associate, it certainly is possible, but like, it's going to be very, very difficult. So the interview process kind of starts typically with like in business school, you go to these information sessions, you meet a recruiter, you meet some of the bankers in the office that you're going to potentially go to. So, I went to like a Lazard information session, and then I realized I'm just going to do Harris Williams. So I reached out to the recruiter there. She introduces, a recruiter or someone will introduce you to like an associate at an investment bank, and you'll start to have these coffee chats. And things are going well when you are moving up the hierarchy and they're introducing you to their bosses. So you go from an associate to a vice president, and then the vice president will probably loop you into one of the managing directors. And then once you've spoken to a managing director and given a good impression, probably you'll almost certainly get invited to the interviews. And investment banking, like these coffee chats are really, I would consider them interviews. Um, because like by the
How do you
time,
make the most out of how do you make the most out of a coffee chat with an associate?
yeah, so I think you really like, I definitely rehearsed my like give me your backgrounds. Like they're gonna ask you, give me your like tell me about yourself. And like your ideal time wicket for that, I would say for like a soft guy is probably anywhere from 90 seconds to 2 minutes. And typically you would say 60 seconds, but I think like some of our stories are so interesting that you're almost kind of shortchanging yourself if your background is just 60 seconds. So, but you kind of want to target 60 seconds because if you target 60, you'll probably land at 90. Um, so really nailing that background, making it super cohesive, and then having it tie into like why banking, and then like why at this office that we are talking to you from. So like if you're talking to Goldman Sachs in New York City, that's like super easy. That's like the easiest one. But like if you're talking to a place like Harris Williams in Richmond or like a William Blair in Charlotte, you need to tailor that narrative a little bit more, and your background all needs to
Yeah.
lead into it, into this
I'm doing
why
my
banking.
MBA I've been in San Diego for 10 years, but my family's from Virginia or
Yep.
Charlotte. So I want to move back there, or my spouse is from there, or whatever.
Yeah. Or if it's like my family's from Richmond, me personally, and when I was talking to William Blair in Charlotte, we were saying like, look, Richmond would be great. But we want to be as close to family as possible. And if Richmond doesn't work out, like Charlotte is an incredible city. We're going to have friends there. We're going to have a broad network of people that we went to college with there. And we're ready to hit the ground running from a social perspective and a professional perspective from day one. Like that's your answer. And you have to have
Yeah.
that. And it can the more specific it can be and the more authentic it can sound, the better. Um, and that's not to say like you want to manufacture your responses, but you really it's like you need to do some self-reflection and just make sure it all makes sense.
Yeah.
And so that's like most of your coffee chats are going to be like, tell me about yourself, tell me about your background. You cover that 90-second spiel, and then you'll probably start getting into like your prior jobs, the more specific things that you've done. And then maybe like you might discuss like some things about the industry that the person you're talking to works in. So I'm in transportation. I cover transportation and logistics. So, we might spend some time talking about what's going on in the broader logistics category. Tariffs are like a really hot topic that's really easy to talk about right now. And so you kind of want to have some key hot button issues. And that's kind of all you really need to cover for these coffee chats. And I feel comfortable saying that because if someone starts to get technical on you, we can talk about what technical means. If someone starts to get technical on you in like the first 3 or 4 coffee chats, it's just like not a good sign. And
What do you
maybe
mean
that's
by
not.
technical? Like
Mhm.
break down a financial statement model just verbally for me?
Yes. Yeah. So if someone like asks you like give me your background and you give it to them and you're on the phone and you have not been invited for an interview yet and they're asking you like walk me through a DCF and they're getting into the weeds on that, it's just like that would be odd and you probably don't need to be prepared for it from the coffee chat stage. Now, I knew some kids in business school who went through that, but yeah, so that's sort of like the next step is like you'll get invited
Do you think
into.
that they should
Yeah.
view that as a come prepared for it? But is that almost like the associate is trying to flex? Be like, okay, I'm going to grill you on a DCF here on a call.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. It 100% is. 100% is like a power move, power flex in a just terrible way.
Now, do you think in that call, instead of about talking about the industry that they cover, that it's more like, what kinds of deals are you actually working on right now without naming the company? Can you just kind of walk me through the different stages that you're at in those? I'm just kind of curious on the process. Do you think,
Yeah, yeah. So like for me personally right now, I am on there's one active sell side deal, and I'll get into what all these mean. I think there's two. I'm on a few deals. Some are kind of like on the back burner. There's not much happening. But the
well,
two
I'm sorry,
most act.
without going into it now, do you think that's an
Mhm.
appropriate question in a coffee chat to
Oh,
ask?
oh yeah, 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 yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, that's 100% like if you ask that, that's like, and you have some industry background, you're not going to need to know the companies that they're talking about.
Yep.
But that's a
And then,
perfect question.
so after you did kind of the various rings of coffee chats and you're kind of getting to like the more formal interviews, like how did you prepare for them? What were those interviews like,
Yeah.
leading up to you getting and then accepting the job offer at Jefferies?
Yeah, so I had done the really formal and rigid technical recruiting process through Harris Williams, and so that was like my real ramp. And then once you've done an internship, or if you have any time in investment banking, all of a sudden the technical interview questions get a lot easier because you've actually kind of done it before. You've built some models, and you sort of like really see these things in action. And so yeah, like my personal prep process for technical interviews is like there's this list of 300 questions. You can look it up. There's all just investment banking 300 questions. You can Google it. And I would just go through those and read them. And you literally have to like verbatim say what the answer to the question is. And I didn't memorize like all 300, but like I definitely memorized like a solid 30. Um, and I had a sound grasp of how to answer a good 100 of them. And if it gets past like 170 questions, like, beginner, intermediate, and like advanced level, if you're like into advanced level topics, like at that point, I would expect more of a conversation. And um, so line one is like memorize the beginner questions and be ready to spit them out verbatim. Line two is
Like,
have a
what
very
are the three main financial statements? Question number one.
yeah, like income statement, balance
Yeah,
sheet, and statement of cash flows. Like
yeah.
boom, you just spit it out. and I'll be happy to walk you through them if that's the next
That'll be
question.
part 2. We're just going to go through all 300.
Yeah. Now I give the interviews, and it's almost more nerve-wracking to give the interview because I'm not staring at these 300 questions all day. I am like quickly reviewing them 10 minutes before the interview and then hoping that the candidate isn't so smart that he can like catch me in a mistake. And so that's like my chief concern these days.
So once you get through the interviews and let's say you accept a job offer, like what is the first couple of weeks like when you're actually on the job? Like what month did you start at Jefferies, and what were the first, weeks or phase 1 like during training?
Yeah. I think okay, so like just real quickly, just to like completely and concretely understand how 51 Bets like fully impacted my process. You introduced me to William Blair. I went the full distance with them. They flew me down to Charlotte. Really great crew down there. Interviewed them with them, and they ended up giving me an offer. And like they knew I was going to do it. I was just open about what I was going to do the whole time. And I like had been interviewing with Jefferies in Richmond, and I like literally picked up the phone immediately after receiving the William Blair offer and like called Jefferies and was like, "Hey, I have this offer from William Blair. Like, if you guys are going to do something with it, if you guys are going to make an offer to me, like I kind of need to know." And so like that's like the leverage you need sometimes to like get a job, especially if you did what I did, which was like
An off
take
cycle.
take the risk of doing this off cycle hiring process. And so without 51 Bets, like who's to know what like when or if I would have gotten an offer. But with like it's like raising money, as soon as you get one investor, it's easier to get the next ones. And so like as soon as I had that one offer, and that like that introduction did come through 51 Bets, like you know um the other one fell into place. And so I ultimately accepted with Jefferies. And the first two weeks were like fully virtual. I literally like I was in Dallas in the first week of June, and then by the first week of July, I had the offer from Jefferies and signed, and then by the end of July, we had moved the family from Austin to Richmond, Virginia, and I was doing my series exam training. So that's like series 63 and series 79. I did that for 2 weeks. It's fully remote, very chill, very stressful because you have to
Let's take a
pass those
snapshot of
exams.
the timeline again. So you graduated in May.
Yeah.
So graduated in May from your MBA program at UT Austin, didn't have anything lined up because you went down the entrepreneurial path, didn't think you want to do banking. We meet in June at Dallas. You get connected to 51 Vets Network, the City Summit, and then from June throughout June, doing all these informational interviews, then doing real interviews, getting competing offers, and then the first week of July accepted, and at the end of July or so, you're moved the family and also starting at Jefferies.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly. So it was crazy summer. Yeah. And so yeah, the series exam training is like relaxed in the sense that you don't have anything to do except for read the books, but it's stressful in the sense that you have to pass this test. So yeah, got through that though. Wasn't that bad. And then went up to New York for 3 weeks to do in-person training in the Jefferies main office in New York. That was through I can't remember. It was like Wall Street Prep or something like that.
Yeah.
And then
Training the Street, Wall Street Prep.
it was Training the Street, and it was good training. And it's like you learn you very granularly walk through how to do an LBO or leverage buyout or like same thing for DCF, same thing for financial statement analysis. And then I left New York, and then you're on the desk, and I'm a coverage banker in transportation logistics, and the desk is as with everything in life, like training is very different from like the reality of the job. In some ways it's harder and it's a lot more analytical than the job itself. But you definitely investment banking is a cool job in the sense that like you do need hard skills to do it. And like I use those hard skills that I learned in training every day. Some more than others. And yeah, we can get into the daily life aspect, I guess.
Yeah, so that kind of transitions to where you're at now. Like, and just as a reminder, married, 3 kids, and what are the general ages?
My oldest it will be 5 in like 2 weeks. Middle one, so 5-ish, 3, and like 8 months.
That's how hard banking has been.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah,
their names. Oh, wait, on their names.
yeah, 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 yeah.
So
2 boys, girl. Yeah.
that's all we need. So what was it like in the first month when you're actually, doing the work? And how
Yeah.
many deals were you staffed on? Like, what's the balance between pitch work and actual deal work?
So I got lucky. Right off the bat, there was an associate who left the office to go on a sabbatical, and there was a live deal right when he left. And they were just entering the part of the deal where you're building the sim, which is like this 70, 80 page marketing document that goes out to prospective or potential buyers of a business. It's super PowerPoint intensive, like long, long days spent just like aligning boxes and making sure everything's perfect and changing font colors. And then, a little bit of like analytical work, but mostly just arts and crafts. And it's a pretty miserable process. I think most people would agree. And so I got to like jump, essentially, I was here for like a week and then I jumped right into that. So the main associate left and then I jumped in and was covering down for him. So I got to do that, which was, difficult, long hours. It was like my daily rhythm was like, um, wake up around like 7:30, have a cup of coffee, get to the office, and kind of just like I would be at the office like maybe around like 8:45, which is like an hour before everyone else gets here, and just like work through stuff. And I would be in the office until like 9 or 10 at night, and then I'd go home. And depending on like what was happening, I would log in from home, and we'd like continue to work until like midnight or 1. And there's like an aspect of this. So that's a pretty intense bout. That's like a pretty intense daily schedule, I would say. There's an aspect to it that is like not mandatory, but when you're a new guy in the bullpen, you kind of have to like establish rapport with the other people in the bullpen, like the other analysts who are the younger guys and the
And
other
also, you might be
associates.
playing catch up at 33,
Yeah.
not having gone to analyst train, then your MBA, then you come back as an associate.
Yeah. Yeah. Those guys who do that are just weapons. Like this job is easy for them. And so like there's a lot of like stuff that you have to learn that's like really specific to the office you work in, like navigating the files on the share drive, stuff like just learning how the office works. And then there's like doing the actual analytics, like actually doing like real world data analysis on like a private company's financials. Like it's always more difficult than what they show you in training.
And what's a ballpark of the size of companies that a Jefferies would work on your team? Like, what's the min
Yeah,
max, generally speaking?
I would say like, I mean, we're advising like a large public company. So like at the top end, like no top ends, but on the bottom end, I would say like anything, the line is probably like around 20 million of EBITDA. So, a company that's doing like 200 million of revenue, with like 10% margins is probably like the very bottom end, I would say. But
Okay.
like I'm not,
Yeah.
I'm not a managing director, and like I'm kind of just swagging it. And that's like stuff I'm still like learning, and there's all these nuances like
Yeah.
fee structures and stuff. So um yeah.
You never know when the MD really believes in a founder that has 2 million of EBITDA. Like, no, trust me, we're gonna take this on, this mandate.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, that is yeah,
I lived it for six
shockingly
years.
prevalent. Yeah.
So what what do you think is important to know, I think, in terms of expectations for going into it? You had the full family context. What do people need to know about going into the job that maybe you didn't know through the MBA process, you didn't know through the internship process?
Yeah. I think like I was super singularly focused on Harris Williams for the internship. And so you know, something like the difference between like a coverage group and a product group, like that's something I've learned. And I think like on like from the job perspective, like I've really come to enjoy some of the work that comes from these like different deals. Like sell side M&A is probably the most lucrative um, financial service that like we provide in this office. But I've really enjoyed like the work that I've been doing with public companies. So I've been doing a lot of research. That's something that's like been pretty fascinating to me. And uh, I think like this apprenticeship model, it like sort of uh, is reminiscent of like how we train in the military, and how you like every step is like looking forward to the like you learn your current job and you're supporting your boss, and then and you're like paving the way and solving problems for the people underneath of you. It's all reminiscent of that, I think, if you approach it the right way. um and like there's a lot to learn, but at the same time, like banking is a grind. There is a point where you sort of like have your head wrapped around, I would say, most of the work that you're going to do. And there's always going to be like the small, the model that's like a challenging Sudoku puzzle that's always going to be intellectually stimulating. But the major muscle movements, they don't really change. And so you get to like get better at it as time goes on, and you get to see how like an associate works, and then you get to see how a VP works, and you're managing multiple like tons of deals, and then director. So there's like a cool pathway, I think, to grow in this profession. Um, and then the other thing is like, as we've like talked about, Jordan, like I had, like within a month of the job, like I had some like crazy health problems. And there's like this aspect of banking, like the grind is real, but I would say anywhere from like 20 to 30% of that grind is like self-inflicted pain. Where, you know, yeah, you have to earn the respect of the bullpen and you have to grind, but like a lot of the work that's done between like call it 1 a.m. and like 4 a.m. is just like I never feel good about it. And you wake up the next day and those problems that seem so big at midnight, or you wake up at 8 a.m. or 7 a.m. and all of a sudden it's just like it's easy, and I can't believe I was staring at that for 20 minutes last night. Um and like to survive,
How
I think to survive, yeah, yeah,
how is your day structured? Like before this, you're on a 30-minute walk. Like
yeah.
should when people are going into it, especially, and I don't know what the work from home culture is like now at different firms or different offices, but like should they just block in like you have to get up from your desk multiple times a day, otherwise you'll just be stuck there till 1 a.m.
Yeah, I think like it would be tough to mandate it, and like I don't know how it would work, but like to me,
We're
like
not
I was saying
mandating
it.
like company wide. I'm like personally like
Oh yeah,
set an
no,
alarm.
okay, yeah. No, like yeah, like personally, I think like one of the things that I've realized is banking like starts late. Unless you're in like you're in the public markets and you have to wake up for the public markets, but like everyone like everyone is in the office no later than 10, and most people show up between 9:45 and like 10. And so um like you have a broad degree of control a lot of the times on like how your life goes in the morning. Is something that I've learned. So like, and like where you have control in this job, you really need to maximize those moments for you personally, because you have so little control everywhere else. Like beyond noon, like I don't know what's going to happen. Like I could be on a flight the next day or in like 6 hours to like go somewhere, and like pitch or like,
And
you
is
know,
that because the MDs and directors in the morning are clearing through the emails, understanding what the priorities are, and then they're able to hand it off to the analysts and associates?
that's pretty much exactly it. They're waking up with their cup of coffee. They're just, scrolling their phone, checking emails and getting organized, gathering. They have a few phone calls to knock out. And then like by like one or two, like taskers start flying and you're just going to get swamped. So, for me, like working out is super important. And so I realized like from the time I wake up to like 8:45, like I have this window where like I need to exercise. And then if I have like, so like I knock it out. Like that's the highest priority for every single day. So just get that done, especially for like a former soft guy. Because if you just screech to a grinding halt, you could wind up in the hospital with a pulmonary embolism or something like that. Um,
Not speaking
and
from
so
experience there.
yeah, so um, yeah, so and then like, when you have like a 30-minute window, you might want to just like sit in your desk and just like scroll Twitter or something, but like just stand up, go outside and just like walk for like 15 minutes one direction and then head back. Um, and that's like a better use of your time. It'll preserve your health. Like, and yeah, there's a whole host of like banking specific habits that people should just never do. And just don't ever start any of them. Right. So yes,
Continue.
eat healthy. Yeah. Right. Like,
But do
um,
you, but do you think that's a function? Yeah. Okay. Well, what are some of the ones that like just don't?
yeah, I think like I think like management presentations, like I think drinking heavily is something that we do a lot just because stress. And if you can just do that as little as possible, catching looks in the office on that one. Like tobacco products, like just everywhere. Like the sleep thing, you gotta find time to sleep. Um, and especially like former military guys, we're all like 28 plus, and like we're in this weird place where we're not like invincible like we used to be in our early 20s. And so I think we're particularly at risk of like just crazy things happening.
Yeah, it's interesting. And when I think back to banking and doing it for 6 years, like it was some of the most interesting, challenging stuff diving into the companies that we were. And we're doing like global sell sides, like a business in Scotland and selling that, or a semiconductor business. Um, that was like some of the fun part. And then some of the stressful part was like doing a pitch and then realizing at the end of the vacation where I spent 2 days, I was like, that pitch never actually was won. And like, what
Yeah,
happened?
yeah,
Like, what happened? And then it was almost that realization, like, this too shall pass. Like, it's
yeah.
okay. Don't don't lose too much sleep over it. Because in a year or maybe 5 years and definitely 10 years, it ain't gonna matter.
Yeah, just this morning I spent 6 hours on a Excel model that like I am fully confident will never see the light of day by anyone probably above my VP. And you just kind of have to accept that. And it's like your job is to just iterate on PowerPoint and do font color sometimes and like make the boxes this color. And like a lot of times but that's just the way it is. Like it's the same thing in like plumbing when you're doing like, you're just, electricity when you're just routing like the little pipes that the wires go in. Like there's it's an apprenticeship model, and it's drudgery for a while, um, with periods of like highly like extreme intellectual stimulation, like really cool things. Um, if you're interested in business. So, and yeah, and I think it's just a great place to kind of just like spend some time and be introspective about your professional self outside of the military, and really find like what it is that you enjoy doing in like the professional world. Because like I love being on the range and shooting steel. That's like a blast. But like I don't have that here. Like here I have like public equity research. I've got like model Excel building. I've got like, public speaking opportunities. I've got stuff like that. And like when are these moments that like I really enjoy what I'm doing, and like extrapolating on that to like potentially plan like a future for yourself if it isn't in investment banking. Um, so yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now. And I might be a
That's
managing
awesome.
director in like 12 years, and who knows, I might be like a carpenter. But um
Well, I think that
right
one of the
now I'm
fascinating things
yeah.
about the skill set is getting you go to the gym so much to develop certain muscles that you're going to use for the rest of your life. Like, I didn't really appreciate the standard of excellence until we actually started to run our own companies. And what I take for granted, like, isn't this just the standard like everyone does? Like, it's not. And you
Yeah.
get that through going through so many different reps that it just shows you how to operate at a different level of excellence, and to bring that through all aspects of your life. um, so to kind of think back to the transition, what are maybe the few things that you did really well, and what are the few things that you maybe would have done differently?
Yeah, I think I did a good job. I view my transition started in like, I would say it started in like early 22. And I was doing like a coding boot camp, and to like maybe go do like full stack engineering. I have like this analytical part of my personality, so like I knew that that was something. And like from there, um, finished the coding boot camp through this skill bridge program, and then went to business school, and then did all the stuff in business school. And I think what I did well starting in early 2022 is I think I did a good job of exploring. And so like I thought maybe being a software engineer would be like lucrative and intellectually stimulating, and turns out like you don't talk to people all day when you do that job. And like that doesn't do it for me. Like I need some social stimulation. And then I went and like I interned at a venture capital firm while I was in business school. So like I got to see like the inner functioning and like the cerebral, heady, not backed by science, venture capital thinking. And then like I saw investment banking, and then I saw an early stage startup, and then I tried my own company. And so I think I did a good job exploring. Um, and it sort of showed me like the path for like at least the next 5 6 years. And I think what I could have done better is I think I could have like narrowed down my exploration by being more introspective, and being like the entrepreneurial journey was much more important to me than seeing venture capital, the inner workings of a VC firm. So like I probably could have ruled out how a VC firm works like relatively quickly, rather than been like being drawn in by the sex appeal of early stage, explosive growth funding. But like starting, like things like maybe I could have like started a lawn mowing company or something like that when I was in business school versus like spending a bunch of time at a VC firm. I don't know. Like that's just like, like I could have been more targeted with like what I really wanted to explore, which I think was
How,
like entrepreneurship and analytical opportunities.
hmm, how yeah, it's interesting, this balance between the upside of exploring The downside of that is that you kind of might be spinning your tires in your network for 3 to 6 months, and it could be frustrating versus earlier on, be like, okay, I am only focused on investment banking. And I'm 50% sure that that's the right decision, but I'll feel 6 months later that I've just had so much more depth of knowledge, depth of network. It's that interesting trade-off of at what point do you truly, narrow the aperture and be like, no, this is what I don't even know if this is the right decision, but I feel enough right that it is, like
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
balance.
Yeah. So yeah, and then like I think just like calming down and like settling with like some things just kind of take time and building models and going through business school like is very difficult and like there's so much little stuff to figure out. And like it just takes a long time. It takes a while. It takes a while to like learn uh all of the accounting and financial
Yep.
uh nitty gritty details that go into like what I'm doing now and just like being okay with that. Like I think we learn really quickly. We do like some really cool stuff in the military, and we're used to having like this massive support system where like if we have a question, like instantaneously it's figured out. We're like the ultimate consumer, and everything is at like our fingertips. And then you get out and like you don't have like this immediate way to like solve any problem, and you kind of have to just figure it out for yourself and like really do some book learning again. And that is it's a process to re-engage those muscles.
Yeah. Well, if you're kind of summarize what 51 Vets is to people who don't know about it, how would you describe it?
Yeah, I think about it as a I think about it as an exclusive network of former special operations personnel um, who are all highly interested in going down like professional pathways, like and with a focus on like corporate finance, uh, high finance, and consulting. And so like that's how I think about it. Is it's like the ultimate Rolodex of like Navy SEALs and everyone else, Green Berets and whatnot, who have like touched finance since the military and are probably like super motivated to have like excellent lucrative careers. And like it's just a way to like blow the doors off whatever your next step is, especially if it falls within you know like investment banking, consulting, maybe
Private
like
equity.
entrepreneurship for sure, private
Yeah.
equity, yes. And like the more targeted and specific your goals are, the more you can get out of 51 bets. So yeah.
Awesome. All right, man. This is awesome. Appreciate you taking the time to do this. And it's really cool to see this journey you've been on from when we met in Dallas in June of 2024 to, now 7 months into banking. It's awesome.
Yeah, definitely. No, Jordan, you've been a huge help. And even now, I'm still in touch. I'm still crawling my way through the network, and it's been an awesome resource.
There we go. All right. Talk to you later.
So, yeah.